So you joined up with Cherry Red, and then you were able to continue at what you were really good at, which is the creative side, with the ideas and putting the releases together. And you had the Cherry Red sort of backroom, if you like, doing everything else on the royalty accounting and the distribution.
Which was a huge lift, because, as you say, being able to just concentrate on the A&R meant we could, keep up the creative momentum to come out with all sorts of ideas, and certainly it helped when I was looking to start new series of titles, and with Cherry Red, not only taking care of the sales that we've got so far, the sales outlets we've got so far, but getting even more, then RPM increased its fan base even further. So it was a really good move.
And then you started actually to regularly put out, I think it was 3 albums a month.
Yeah.
So you were up the release schedule as well.
Yes, we hadn't hit that before.
Yeah.
Did up the number of titles. I suppose it was also, earlier on that you have other financial constraints, which was in our game, it's mostly licensing. We certainly never had the capital to acquire. We represented a few people, got into that situation of representing a bit of catalogue, but we couldn't actually go out and acquire a whole set of masters that you could work on. So there are always licensing constraints, and I'm happy to note these days, and it didn't used to happen, but in the press, where they review catalogue albums or reissues, they do actually note, due to licensing restrictions, this isn't necessarily the definitive, or it's not the compilation that the compilers would necessarily have wanted, the total thing that they would have wanted. But that's not something that people always understood. They'd always come back, you get letters and say, why didn't you put that track on or that track on? Actually, it's £2,000 from that company, because they don't understand.
Just to explain that to people who don't know the mechanics of it, everything you put out, you have to obviously get the rights. And it may be the rights owned by the band, which is not usually the case, but it can be the case, and that's relatively easily normally. But if you have to license from a big company, and you have to license from 2 different companies, it starts to get very complex and often very costly. Yeah.
And something that I really have enjoyed with RPM is, partly through that process of researching rights ownership, is finding some of the players in the music business. So we've always gone to look for artists and try and get artist involvement, but as well as that, I'm really interested in how the industry worked in other decades, and in looking for who owned this, that, or the other. I then found producers and previous record label owners, etc., and then you start to piece together how the industry works. And that's really fascinating, because you make all kinds of links between the sounds you can hear and how they came about.
Because it is the characters behind it.
Absolutely.
That make it so interesting at times.
Not so much the sound, but I heard something I picked up recently was I had a conversation with Gloria Bristow, who was a manager in the 60s, and she was also a publicity agent as well. And she managed Episode 6, who were a London group, late 60s, always on Radio 1 because they were around for Radio 1 club sessions, etc. And in their ranks were Roger Glover and Ian Gillan. And
is a Deep Purple connection,
who then went on to Deep Purple, which, if you just read in the book, and Glover and Gillan went on to join Deep Purple, Episode 6 continued for a while, then folded, and you think that's the story. But behind it, I've now learnt from Gloria, was that there's a suggestion that Gillan and Glover were poached for Deep Purple by the Purple management at the time. And Gloria took umbrage at this and actually challenged Purple's management and got a settlement from Purple's management, the funds from which she then made the Quatermass album. So I didn't know how the Quatermass album came about. It was a follow-on group for Mick Underwood and others, but that's why that one exists, because there was this little challenge over personnel for that kind of thing. I think is really interesting because you get to find out why something happened, and so that's been a spur for keeping on with RPM, because there's always more to discover. from what people have done and why things exist.
One contact leads to another, and another idea.